Now that you have mastered sorting, we're going to see an extremely useful feature that Excel has, which is called filtering. We're going to use what's called an autofilter. And an autofilter allows us to filter data in a quick and easy manner, to find and work with a smaller set of data in a range of cells or a table. So for example, what we looked at earlier, when we had a class of 30 students, I would like to possibly filter it out by part-time or full-time members. And I would like to see just the data which encompasses the part-time, or just the data that's the full-time members. This could be very useful, and we can do analysis with that data separately. There are many types of filtering that we can do, and we're not going to go into them, but let's just mention some of them. We can filter by text, numbers, we can filter dates or times, we can filter above or below an average number, we can filter for blanks or non-blanks, we can filter by cell color, font color, and we can filter by selection. So let's see by an example how this amazing filtering works. We have our data, which is not in the table format. Let's highlight the data we'd like to deal with filtering, and we'll click on filter. Now notice what happens. We have arrows that appear, and this will give us the ability to choose what we want to filter and how. So for example, let's say I'd like to filter on the status, and I'd like to see those students that are just part-time. So I click on this, and I'm just going to delete what I don't want and select part-time. Click on OK, and all I see now are the part-timers. And I can now do further analysis just on the part-timers. That's amazing. If you want to get back to the data, we didn't lose the data. We just click on this if we wish, and we can go to select all and click on OK. And we are now back to where we were. We can do something similar to that by possibly filtering out by the exams a certain criteria. So we can go in over here, and here it says number filters. Let's click on that, and maybe we would just like to see those that received a grade below 70. And we can do that as well. In this case, I'm looking at those that received below average. But let's go back and look at a specific value. Let's return here. Let's select all. Let's just make sure we have everything. And there it is. And let's go to the exams one more time, and let's do a number filter. And let's say less than. Let's click on that, and we will pick the grade of 65. And click on OK. And now this identifies those students that did not perform as well as they could have, and that was just for exam number 1. We can do the same thing for exam number 2, and we could have multiple types of filtering as well. So for example, I'd like to see those in exam number 2 now that received less than a 75. I will use the same data that we have now with the first filter, and I can one more time go to number filters and less than, and I will choose here the number I want, and let's put in 75. Press enter, and now I have that criteria. And I can continue doing this to see exactly what I'm trying to find. We can do something very similar to what we did in the raw data by going to our table and clicking on a cell And just like we did before, we can click on filter. Notice the arrows come down, and we can filter this, sort by some feature, large is the smallest, whatever. We don't want to do that now. We just want to filter the data, and let's do this time above average, and there we have the results, above average. There's a third aspect to the filtering. We can set up what's called a criteria range on the worksheet and use it to manipulate records that pass the comparison criteria. We'll understand this more, but let's get the rules straight first. When we use a criteria range on the worksheet, this involves two steps. So let's do that first, and then we'll see exactly how this can be applied. The first step is to create the criteria range and name this criteria. The second is to use the Advanced button on the Data tab on the ribbon. Alright, let's see how we are going to do this and what will this accomplish. To set up the criteria range, we copy the column headings in the table to a different area of the worksheet. And that's what we did over here. That would be step number 1. We then enter the comparison data that we'd like to see right underneath the field names. So in this case, we'd like to see those that got below 65 on the first exam and those who are female. Let's choose the information we want, and we'll call this the criteria. So we're going to select our criteria from our table over here. We will now name this criteria. So we go over to the name box and we'll type in criteria. Press enter, and to check that out, let's go to the name box, let's look at criteria, and it does highlight that. An important note is that the text in the column headings, as we see over here, must be, and that's an important point, they must match those in the table exactly. Otherwise we may get some strange results. So that's why it's a good idea to paste it in. We now go to the Advanced Filter dialog box. Now you notice it's very similar. Let's click on this to the filter. But let's now put in the range we're dealing with. We gave it the name criteria. That would just refer to the specific cells, the records in this area. And the criteria range would be the specific information that we want dealing with the data. So in this case, the range will be everything from U all the way across, and we can read that off. And now when I click on OK, we now see the criteria, namely those that receive less than 65 and are female. Now you may ask, what's the main difference between autofilter, the query technique, and using advanced filter? Well, just like the autofilter, the advanced filter displays a subset of the table, but the main difference is that the advanced filter allows you to create more complex comparison criteria because the criteria range can be as many rows long as necessary, allowing for many sets of comparison criteria. Whichever one you prefer is fine, as long as you understand the mechanics behind it. And finally, to return to see all our data, we can click on Filter, and we are back now to the data. We can get rid of the filter down arrows by clicking one more time, and we see we have returned. If we want to do some specific analysis on the subset, we can copy that into another sheet, and we can do new independent analysis.